Consider the possibility that Starlink is actually escape pods, and that CEO mass exodus that happened, a year and a half, 2 years, however long ago it was, where all these top-level CEOs just disappeared and didn't take up another position somewhere else in another company and had a long career ahead of them in a very prosperous company, but they just disappeared. My dad came home one night while I was watching the Starlink satellites go over, and they weren't all together like in one photo, which is what I see most often presented. A whole string of them in one photo. When I was watching them go over, I counted about 50 of them total. My stepdad shows up halfway through while I'm watching them. I'm like, watch, dude. There's one, and it takes about 60 to 90 seconds to pass over the horizon, and as it reaches the edge of that edge of the horizon, here comes the next one, and they're all evenly spaced, and they take about 60 to 90 seconds to pass over your field of view. Consider that, just like the movie 2012, where they had their own little versions of Noah's Ark, and most of the people who thought they had a ticket to ride didn't. The muse message for this video is by Kygo. There'll be nothing left for no one if you don't stop living your life tied to one side with a blind eye. Buddha was born December 25th to a virgin mother. Krishna was born December 25th to a virgin mother. And about 12 other religions, at least, have all the same character profiles as the characters in the Bible, particularly the main character of the Bible. Walked on water, 12 disciples, was known as the Son of God, the light of the world, healed the sick and the blind, performed all the same miracles Jesus did, but a different character under a different name, same character profile. You have to really twist your mind to dismiss that. I don't want to bring her up again, but someone once said, oh, that's got to be like a Mandela effect. You know that the God of this world can change history and rewrite everything, and that's all just to fool us out of thinking that our version of the same story is the real one. We believe in the S-O-N of God, and all those evil ancient Babylonian sun-worshipping cults were believing in the S-U-N. When I've shown you the sun tunnel opening up and craft transiting through it, that explains why there might be sun-worshipping religions. So, in order to cling to your little version of that same exact story and dismiss all the others, is being tied to one side with a blind eye to dismiss all of that. And I know a lot of people that want to cling to what they know because it's tried and true and comfortable, because new and different is a little uncomfortable. They'll be like, yeah, it's because all those CEOs are evil and they know God's going to come wrath on them and they're trying to escape before he comes and wipes them out. How's that working out for you? Touch on another point here real quick. In my last video, I mentioned that lady who saw the subliminal embed of the word rape on the billboard. Either they really intentionally embedded the word rape subliminally in there, just somewhat visible, or for the purposes of indoctrinating the feminazi soldiers, or she's just imagining it and she's seeing rape everywhere she looks. In the clouds, in that billboard, just like my niece when my stepdad said, be careful out there, be safe. Oh, what, you think I don't know that women are getting raped everywhere? So either they really embedded the word rape in that billboard, or she's already so indoctrinated with that concept that she sees rape everywhere she looks. Either way, it's proof of the same agenda, proof of the same effect. Either that billboard that she sees the word rape in is the cause of this programming, or the fact that she sees it in the billboard is the effect of this programming. Either way, free your mind. So in the song by Kygo, Nothing Left, starts out saying, tell me that you need me. to help you find a way through all of this madness, and I'll be the light of day. Please won't you believe me, even if you don't agree, and know that I am trying to help us all break free. Oh, there'll be nothing left for no one if you don't stop living your life tied to one side with a blind eye. We've all heard that Lucifer was the musician in heaven. They tell us these things for a reason. For this time. So that when people start receiving these messages and understandings, that must be Lucifer. Likewise, how does it say in the Bible that young men will have visions and old men will dream dreams, or vice versa? And that in those latter days, people will start following false prophets and false Christs, etc.? Pre-paving, that's preventative maintenance. For when this time comes, and the general churchgoers can see that there's a spiritual awakening happening and all these people are tapping into a spirit, but it's not us sitting here in the pews reading our book, but these guys are showing us phenomenon and revelations that are clearly supernatural. They're the evil ones. Whew. Be glad that we're not catching all that false light of Lucifer, so that the sheeple will stay on the plantation when they see this spiritual awakening happening. See, we told you this was going to happen, and all those people that are getting that spiritual awakening now, that's the false light of Lucifer. Be glad that you're not receiving those understandings and that you're still just knowing what you've always known. And they pre-paved the path so that when you see this, you won't join in. You'll know to stay away from that awakening that's happening. That's the golden dawn that Glenn Beck spoke of as some sort of Nazi, satanic, one world order thing. James True said that these Freemasons are pushing for this golden dawn. And people who know the Freemasons are evil and everything else are going to have a real tough time. In fact, they'll be left behind. No one gets on board thinking they know something. And if after all that's been revealed to us in these times, you still cling to that religion as if that's the one true version of the story that's been replicated so many times throughout history and still has two other operating religions, Krishna, December 25th, Virgin Mother. Buddha, December 25th, Virgin Mother. Jesus Christ, born December 25th to a Virgin Mother. That's just the ones that are still currently operating. You look through history, there's a lot of others. And so to cling to that thing that you think you know, even though you now know that that was indoctrination, those people don't get to come with. And those who are being contacted during this time is the prolonging of the calm before the storm. Because with everything I know that I've seen, the sun tunnel, the plasma fires, I could name a few other things, but with everything I've seen and know, the airborne aircraft carrier, the portal in the cathedral, with everything I've seen and I know, most of which I've shared with you, some of which I have not, all of the angels that crossed my path and interacted with me on my trip to Missouri, during this time, where some people are being contacted with surgical precision, during this prolonging of the calm before the storm, it's a good thing. Because if the people could all see what I've seen, if they got to learn and know and understand it gradually and incrementally, like I have, they'd be able to process it and accept it and adapt to the reality that's outside of the conceptual island prison that we've been on. But for those who haven't followed along and sought the truth and gone about their lives, going through the motions, never even looking up, never questioning, because I have faith. Faith and patriotism are pretty much the same energy. My country, right or wrong. No, I'm not going to question anything of my religion. That's just Lucifer and satanic influence trying to get me to question and think for myself. When the public suddenly, not incrementally and slowly, but suddenly sees everything I see, and those heavens are rolled back like a scroll, their hearts will fail them for fear. A guy the other day, in fact, in a comment section, like my last video, said that he watched it go from completely overcast to pure blue inside of, I think he said, the time it took him to take a pee. Like the heavens were rolled back like a scroll. If that were to happen right now, so much of the general population that has intentionally, well, not intentionally, has every time something comes into view that runs contrary to their worldview, they got to put the blinders up. So with each one of these things that comes into view, they got to reduce the size of their aperture to where they're still looking at something that resembles the world they've once known, because that's what they want to hang on to. They're looking in the rearview mirror saying, oh no, everything's as it's always been. Those of us that aren't are looking out the windshield and the other windows going, no, nothing's like it ever was. We're not in Kansas anymore. And there's a big curve coming up on this road. And if you're not looking out the window, you're going to fly over the edge. If you're looking in that rearview mirror, you're not going to make it around this corner. We are that living bridge, and the big corner is here. And that's what it meant in that song that says, Jack Johnson, by now it's beginning to show a number of people are numbers that ain't coming home. You can think of that song as just referencing war, people that went to war, casualties that won't come home. But that's not something that's beginning to show. That's something that's calculable on a daily basis, the casualty numbers. I'm not trying to convince you of the underlying messages in some of these songs, but there definitely is. I mean, Jack Johnson told you, around that sun, some say, is going to be the new hell, some say. Ain't it strange that we're all burning under the same sun? We're burning under control, not out of control, under control. That is the prolonging of this calm before the storm, to allow individuals to be moved through this progression, to shatter your consciousness in an incremental way in order that you can adjust. And if you have been receiving the adjustments through contact with the Spirit, you're probably going to be a lot better off than people who haven't, that are sitting in the pew saying, how come I'm not receiving this revelation and spiritual awakening that everyone else seems to be? Oh, because you're one of the good Christians and they're all just the evil people, and that's all the false light of Lucifer they're receiving. Be glad that you're not receiving these understandings and being acclimated to a new understanding of the world. Stick to what you know, and that'll get you into heaven. Just recite the buzzwords and the virtue signaling syllables, and be glad that you're not receiving these enlightenments that these other people are. That's what's happening right now. So, just like the Roadrunner and the Wile E. Coyote runs up ahead of the road in front of the Roadrunner and takes the road sign that says north this way and flips it around. That's what the Bible was. Pre-paving the path in front of us so that when we get to this point, we will see the signs pointing the opposite direction of truth. That is why you pretty much just got to read the Bible backwards. And you can follow the road signs to find truth, and you'll get a lot closer to truth by looking in the exact opposite direction than what they tell you. By considering the exact opposite of what the preposition they have given you. Just a side note, I'm going through some of my back gravy because I had a week where I took some notes. New York City police are using Big Dog by DARPA in their patrols. I saw one report on it on mainstream news. They're drip feeding it into the consciousness. Soon, lots of police departments will be using them. And they'll justify it by saying that it takes humans out of harm's way. the police officer human, but what about all the other humans that are on the other end of that stick? Well, these cops won't be racist and prejudiced. They've released DARPA's Big Dog. DARPA's also got a robotic cat that runs like 60 miles an hour. Just want to throw that out there. I'm going to try and find the link and throw it in the description. Because I was like 2 weeks ago, I saw it come across the news and I was like, and it just kind of faded into the background. Because there's so much other stuff going on. But I thought I'd share that with you because it's quite interesting. Marfoogle replicated my own sentiment in a show about a week ago. That they came out and released, full disclosure, said, yes, we have downed extraterrestrial craft, that we have done reverse engineering, and the technology that we've developed from that is going to change our worlds. But it fell on deaf ears. The Galactic Federation, spoken of by the Israeli Defense Force Space Agency chief for 30 years, but now that he's retiring, he said, yes, there is intergalactic federation with extraterrestrials that we've made deals with, that they could be able to do experiments here, and Trump knows about them. And Trump never came out and said, well, he's getting a little old and he's kind of losing his marbles, but we'll forgive him for that. No. His silence is deafening, and so is the public's. What more could they possibly reveal to us besides rolling back to heaven like a scroll? When they can come out and acknowledge that, and it falls on deaf ears, and there's nothing but silence from the crowd, and we act like we didn't just hear that, that shows that the truth is something you have to be willing to receive. It's that willingness to receive it that allows you to, and once you are, it's all over out there. But it's the unwillingness to receive these truths that keeps people from knowing about them, even when it's presented right out in the open in the public. In James True's stream, where he talks about placebo effect and the vaccine, I think it's called Nothing Happens in a Closed Loop, he says that the sign for music and the sign for medicine are essentially the same symbol or hieroglyph. He equated music to medicine. You guys might have heard that the DEAGEL report has been removed. The DEAGEL report was a government contractor who collected information from all over and created future projections on what will happen for the government to be able to plan accordingly. And that same information was very useful to financial investors that wanted to know what the future looked like so we can invest in the right places. Very accredited, reliable source. So much so that most of his work was classified through these government contract works that he did, but he released some of it to the public. That's the information that was available to CEOs and stuff that want to create a plan going into the future based on his models and predictions that are all based on large amounts of data that are gained and ran through calculations. So the DEAGEL report disappeared, but people recognize that it says in 2025 there's huge depopulations from all these countries. Magnetic pole shift, pole reversal explains why the DEAGEL report said that. That would also seem to lend credence to the idea that Starlink is the escape pods. The CEO exodus got on the escape pods, and they're gone. Marfoogle, in this video titled The DEAGEL Report, he also mentions, I'll include the link in the description along with a couple of timestamps, at 16 minutes 50 seconds, the ISS live feed no longer cuts out. And it did it so consistently there for a while, people would be watching the ISS, International Space Station, live feed camera, and then something would come into view that's not supposed to be there and cut it off. Suddenly the stream cuts out and you don't get to see it. And it happened consistently and regularly enough. Then people, Marfoogle says, has anyone noticed them cut the live feed on the ISS lately? Like they're not even doing that anymore. Like this stuff's flying by so often, they're just letting us see it. Yeah. They're trying to acclimate us. Keeping that concealed keeps us safe, because the general population, if they were to see it suddenly, they would become dangerous very quickly. I'm also going to include this link in the description. It's by PBS Nova, and it's called Magnetic Storm. If the North wasn't true, could I find my way to you? And it explains how these magnetic pole shifts have happened throughout history, and that our magnetic field is like a cocoon. It just used the word cocoon in passing, but when I heard that word, cocoon, you mean like we're in a state of metamorphosis. And like the butterflies that hatch out of the cocoon, they get to go out and experience the whole world in a whole new way than they did when they were a caterpillar. As the magnetic field disappears, the cocoon opens up, and it's like God set the cosmic egg timer and knew that by the time he circles back around, it'll be about time to open up that cocoon. And it is the arrival of these planets that creates the final shift, or prolongs it for a while, depending on the rate of return on our investment of how many people are seeing the light. And once it's like, okay, the rest of these people, we've shown enough. If they're not woke yet, they never will. It hurts to set you free, but you'll never follow me. Let's gather these souls and get out of here. Reseed the petri dish. And we'll be back in another however long it takes to grow a crop of consciousness. Because that's what this is. It's not a human farm, it's a consciousness farm. The kingdom of heaven is a kingdom of conscience, or no kingdom at all. And so it would make sense that there are many different vessels. We are the living soil, but there are other versions of living soil. Other vessels that look different than us, in which consciousness is grown and developed and then harvested. And there's a balance that's being sought between the emotional and the analytical, the heart and the mind. And so some of these beings may be more left brain analytical, and others may be more emotional, and it is finding that balance between the two that is the reason for using all these different vessels that produce consciousness in different ways. So don't expect to see little blonde-haired, blue-eyed baby Jesus coming in on the clouds. Prepare to see anything but, because that's probably the farthest thing from the truth. The idea that God's a human. During the part in this DEAGEL report video by Marfoogle, when he references this UFO, which has been acknowledged by our military, that we have recovered it, and that it will rock our world when we learn of the technology that was developed through reverse engineering, and ask, how has this slid by the people? Marfoogle's like, how has this slid by everybody? And he says, he believes we are being rapidly evolved. That's the words he used. I'll include the link in the description. I don't see the timestamp for exactly where he says that, but you can watch the whole thing if you'd like. And I had a realization recently that actually made sense of something Greg Braden said 20 years ago in his video series called Awakening to Zero Point and Beyond Zero Point, the Collective Initiation. And that is how we are being rapidly evolved, collective initiation. And he said we reach a point where it's no longer about thinking and knowing, it's about being, becoming the essence of those things that you had to go through the process of investigating, and then thinking, and then believing, and then a state of knowing. And knowing is what James True calls petrified belief. It's just a state, it's what I call knowing, is just thinking and believing with a feeling of certainty, and you say, now I know this thing. And then the next stage beyond that is being. It's incorporated into your sense of being, where you don't even have to think about it. When someone asks, what are you? You don't have to think about it. Well, human being, male. It's who you are. It's what you are. It becomes your natural instinct. My relationship with God has reached that level of being. Let me give you another example. My influence on my mom with all my conspiracy theory stuff has incorporated itself into her sense of being. So much so that she refused to drink the hospital water while she was there. And the nurse is like, "What? It's seltzer water." And she's like, "Yeah, so is this. I'm gonna just drink the bottled water. Thanks, though." Because she obviously suspected there might be something in there besides water that she didn't want. Be it something that they know the effect of, or something experimental that they just want to test on her. She said, "No thanks, I'm gonna just drink the bottled water." Yeah. And the nurse is probably like, "Huh? Like, we got IVs in you and shit," and you're like, "No, I don't want the water." Because she's become hip to it, or maybe she's projecting. You know, people project onto the world what they themselves do. Liars think everyone else is lying. Honest people think everyone else is honest. And she didn't want to be involuntarily submitted to an experiment as a participant within the experiment. I don't know if you can see this. There's the goat. Where is it? The goat on the side of his truck, and it's from Corona, California. Too bizarre. It's a stylized goat with horns. Maybe here in a second I'll walk over there and try and get a better shot of it.